What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And in today's video we'll be doing my AFL Round 13 tips of the 2023 season. So let's get straight into it and we'll look at my round 12 tips. There was only 7 games last round and I only got 4 out of 7. I was a bit stupid here. I did tip Carlton, which was probably a bit of a stupid tip by me. Also did get Port Adelaide right. Geez, that was an impressive comeback from Hawthorn. And then West Coast, at times it looked like they were going to win, but then Collingwood, of course, were way too strong, especially in that last quarter, and got the job done by a big margin in the end. And then Bulldogs, it's like I knew Geelong were going to win this game in the back of my mind, but I still went with the home team. I just felt like surely the Bulldogs win this game, especially with Geelong's injured midfield, but they couldn't. And Gold Coast got that right. They were really impressive. Weren't they like down by like 40 points or something? But they still managed to end up thumping the Adelaide Crows, and they really are like the best team in Darwin. They play so good up there. And then Giants got that wrong. Gee, again, that was a 50-50 game. I could have tipped Richmond, but went with the home team, and they just can't win at home, the Giants. And I got Essendon right just. I was rooting on North, but they couldn't get the job done in the end, so I did get 4 out of 7, which wasn't the best, but we'll move on. First game of round 13, Thursday night, between the Sydney Swans and St Kilda Saints. Both teams had the bye, but before the bye, Swans played really good against Carlton, and St Kilda had a bit of a shocker against Hawthorn. It just seemed like they ran out of gas and they really needed the bye to come sooner, but unfortunately they had to play and they lost to Hawthorn. So this will be an interesting game, both teams coming off the bye, of course, like I just said. It's at the Swans home ground, which gives them a huge advantage, I reckon, here. And I reckon with a big home Sydney crowd that the Swans will be too strong and win this game by 22 points. And I do reckon Swans will have a big day in Buddy's 350th. And then moving on to the Friday night. Geez, it felt like these two teams played yesterday, but they're already playing again. Bulldogs versus Port Adelaide, this time at Marvel Stadium. This is a very interesting game, especially because Bulldogs have now lost a couple in a row, and the top 8 spot is starting to look a bit more vulnerable. And Port Adelaide, of course, they are bloody flying. 3 wins clear inside the top 4. They are absolutely killing it at the moment, and they just can't lose. The only team I reckon they can lose to is Collingwood at the moment. They're just beating everyone and they're playing excellent footy. And to be honest, it is hard to go past them here. But do I tip the Bulldogs? Will they bounce back here and win this game? It is such a tough game to tip. And you know what? I'm sensing an upset here. I'm going to say the Bulldogs win this game against the odds by 6 points on their home ground and finally get a win. And then moving on to the MCG. Brisbane don't often play the MCG, but they're playing Hawthorn at the MCG. Hawthorn, I guess it was a really pleasing second half against Port. They could have just gave up and got thumped by 150 points if they really wanted to, but they came back and they kicked a lot of goals in a row. I think it was like 6 or 7. So they played a pretty good second half against Port, and in the first half, of course, they didn't show up. Brisbane, of course, it is hard to assess them just because they had to bye. However, I reckon they'll come out really fresh and skillful on the road against Hawthorn. And I reckon they'll win this game by 20 points. I reckon Hawthorn will actually put up a very good fight and will scare Brisbane at times. But Brisbane will come back in the last quarter to storm home by 20 points. Then moving on to Adelaide Oval, between Adelaide and West Coast. Adelaide, they can beat any team at home, any team in the competition, including Collingwood, but on the road, it doesn't really look like they can beat many teams. West Coast, on the other hand, had a pretty good second and third quarter against Collingwood. Probably should have been a lot closer, but Collingwood, we all knew they were just going to storm home anyway, and of course they did that in the last quarter. At Adelaide Oval, I'll be extremely shocked if Adelaide drop this game. They're sitting at 6-6, so they really need to win this game, and they should. I reckon they'll smash West Coast here by 62 points. Then moving on to Optus Stadium Saturday night, between Fremantle and Richmond. In my opinion, Richmond probably a bit stiff not to be high on the ladder. I do feel like they probably should be on at least one more win. They did lose against Essendon in the last 20 seconds, which probably cost them a really good shot at making the finals. But anyway, Fremantle are in some very, very good form. They are coming off the bye, but before that they beat in both the premiers and the runners-up of last year and third place Melbourne. So they beat the top 3 sides of last year all in a row, which was very impressive, and they do look like they're in absolute killer form. And I do reckon they'll be too strong for Richmond here at home and will win this game by 27 points. And then moving on to Tassie, between North Melbourne and the Giants. North Melbourne played really well against Essendon for pretty much the whole night. They just fall short, and you got to feel for them. They probably do deserve a win. And the Giants, on the other hand, were I guess a bit disappointing at home to be like 5 goals down against Richmond. But then, of course, they came back and they fell short in the end. They played a really good second half, but their first half cost them the match. Giants do play well on the road. This isn't Tassie. I reckon they are a decent Tassie side, the Giants. I reckon they'll be too strong in Tassie and will win this game by 28 points. Moving on to the MCG between Carlton and Essendon. Every match Carlton plays in has so much headlines written all over it, and this one is no exception. Carlton, if they lose this game, they can put a line through their season completely. They'll have no chance of making finals in my opinion. Essendon, on the other hand, in some pretty decent form. They must be pretty wrapped with themselves that they just managed to get the job done in the end against North Melbourne. That's all they got to do to play finals, and that's exactly what they did. They're beating the teams they should, and they're not beating the teams that they shouldn't. So they're sitting at about where they should at the moment at 7 wins and 5 losses. For some reason, I do reckon Essendon will bring their best, and I reckon they'll run away with it. I reckon Essendon will win this game by 23 points. And then the big one, the Queen's birthday clash between Melbourne and Collingwood. In my opinion, if Melbourne want to announce themselves as genuine contenders in season 2023, I reckon they need to win this game. Otherwise, in my eyes, they are pretenders. That's just in my eyes though, of course. I reckon if they get done here by Collingwood, they don't have a chance at winning the premiership. I reckon they really need to announce themselves and win this game. However, it is so hard to go past Collingwood. They are definitely the best team in the competition. Them and Port are the clear best 2 teams in my opinion, and Brisbane of course. However, I reckon Collingwood will be way too strong here and will win this game by 24 points. And there you go guys, only 8 games this round. Only Gold Coast and Geelong have the bye. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a big fat thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.